Welcome. It is Thursday night here, Land Table Stream. Friday Eve, we like to call it. Tomorrow's Friday, which is great. Hope you've had a good week up until now. And as we approach the weekend, hopefully you're getting ready to do some serious, or if you're able, some serious study, aka labbing, reading, whatever the case may be. We're prepared, I'm prepared to do that here. I'm really gearing up to do some, I want to do quite a bit of labbing this weekend. I haven't been able to do much this week, and I'm really looking forward to knocking out some hopefully INE workbook. In fact, I've decided, I think I'm ready to hit the workbook. A lot of the early labs in the workbook I was not able to do because it involved shaping. And even though I think it's just a single command, still I needed to understand what that was doing. So we'll probably do some, there'll be some queuing labs, I think, in the beginning of the workbook in the QoS section, but I'll plan to hit some of those. Today, I haven't really done any labbing. Again, I'm working on taxes, getting close to the end of that on the federals, which is good, and just did some flashcards. As a matter of fact, I was up to 60. I was behind on 60 flashcards, and I got through quite a few of them already today. I had a lot of meetings today, so yeah, I'm down to 20. So I've done 2/3 of them, and have some more to do here. So yeah, extended formula for shaping CR, that's a good one. So yeah, I will be working on that. Also, I got a question from a viewer, and I always encourage, I just want to say, anybody that is subscribes to a YouTube channel or Twitch or follows me on Twitter or Instagram, and you have questions, send them to me, however, even in Discord, right? But this was through email, which is fine, the landtamer@gmail.com. And someone was asking about Azure, and I thought, well, yeah, it's too long of an answer to just reply in an email. So I let them know that, I was going to vlog about it tonight. And basically, the questions were around why Azure. So I guess it's probably a viewer or someone who's seen some of my posts about Azure on Instagram or whatever. And yes, in terms of cloud, when you talk about, you get into the whole question of why Azure, or why AWS, why Google Cloud Platform, why cloudx. That's why I put cloudx, because it could be anything. Oracle, any of the other smaller providers, why choose that one? And it's a very good question, and I have been asked that before. I tend to, any information I post or talk about in the vlog is about Azure, Microsoft Azure Cloud. And why Azure? Well, why any of them, right? And the answer that I would give is, in my case, it's because hey, brother, how are you? Kasade, it's good to see you, my man. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you in the chat. Hope all is well in Brazil. And thanks for stopping in, my friend. Yeah, people ask why Azure, and in my case, it's because that is what the team that I'm assigned to. And yes, there are, where I work, there is work in multiple clouds, not just Azure, but the team I'm assigned to, a good bit of our work is involved in Azure, Microsoft Azure. And that is why I talk about Azure, right? Because outside of studying for the CCIE routing and switching exam, I'm not studying Azure really, or cloud, anything. But does that mean I wouldn't be? Not necessarily. I think that it's very important. Any project, pick one is my answer, I guess. Just if you're not sure where to start, pick one of the big ones. And when I say the big ones, I say either AWS or Azure. Azure is gaining ground. Azure is smaller than AWS in terms of deployment, but they are growing faster than AWS, it would seem, in terms of new revenue and new. So Azure's catching up, and Microsoft, of course, is caught up with Apple in terms of, value. So Microsoft has surpassed Apple now in terms of cash, I should say. So Microsoft now has more cash than Apple. I never thought that would happen, but in large part, I think it is due to quite a bit of the revenue, the cloud revenue. So anyway, either one is a good one to start with, but you should be learning cloud. So any project you need to do, like if you need a lab computer, right? Or with the prices AWS asks, that's no wonder. Well, good point, Jimmy, 6-7, but I will say Azure ain't cheap either. But the thing is I would pick one. So anytime you want to do a project, find a reason to do it in Azure. And when I say a project, even though you're working hard on a certification that has nothing to do with the cloud, all of us have from time to time to do projects, right? I'll give you a couple examples, okay? I know someone or a couple of people who recently wanted to redo their resume, and instead of doing it in Microsoft Word or whatever the case may be, and just posting, updating on LinkedIn, they decided to do a digital version of their resume on a website, but that is hosted in the cloud. Tom Ammon, I know, recently did one, and I think he's not the only one, but he is one that actually blogged about it. TomAmmon.com. Yeah, so you go to TomAmmon.com. So this is a project that he worked on. And I think at the time he was actually, I know he has a new job, so that's why I think I can say this, but he's, does this even have University of Utah, November 2012? Okay. Oh, interesting. This goes from, so yeah, I know at the time, I talked to him last in June of 2018, and I know at the time he was interviewing with several people. And of course, that was one of the things I assumed that inspired him to do this. And he blogged about how he did this all in the cloud. And yeah, in July, he did get a new job with Hotwire Communications. So this is a really cool resume. So those are the types of projects I'm talking about. If you need a lab server, is another one, right? If you're doing a blog, instead of just using, maybe use one of the prepackaged sort of blog sites, set up, a host it yourself in Azure or AWS. Very simple kind of things, right? So those are kind of projects I'm talking about, dipping your toes into the cloud, because, and even as with the CCI routing and switching, well, even routing and switching, beyond routing and switching, any of the CCIE written exams and the CCDE written exam, they all mention cloud. So it's probably at your employer now. They probably have cloud people working already. If they don't already, they will soon, I'm sure. Every company is dipping their toes in the cloud, some more than others. So as a network engineer, it behooves you to get familiar with the cloud technologies. So pick one, and all of them pretty much have one way or another to try out their services. I recently hosted a web page using a PaaS service in Azure. One of the links I have, I think it's more streams. Yeah. Jimmy says there are still a lot of companies actually refuse to do anything. And that is true. That is very true. But just think about not just and you may be at the company you are now till you retire. But at some point, you are going to interview at another company. And you want to be able to, even if the company you're at now doesn't and refuses to do cloud for security or whatever reason, which is interesting because, like, I think it was the FBI is recently bid out moving their entire operation to the cloud. So We use 365. So yeah, there you go. But even if you are at a company that is, let's say they're only doing 365, or they're not trying to move some of their data center footprint into a public cloud, at some point you will interview for a job, and I guarantee you that it is going to be to your advantage to be able to at least speak to having some knowledge of how the cloud works, whether it's networking or just infrastructure in general. And automation, that is going to be a very good advantage for you, I would think. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet on that. Like that, there's no way that is not an advantage in any future job interview that you have to do related to networking, because it's not just about cloud. One of the biggest advantages I've seen or things that I've been learning about with the cloud team I'm working on now is not just some of the networking stuff, like some of the knobs and things like that, but the automation component and the rapid deployment capabilities that are in the cloud is what is really driving a lot of cloud adoption. Just the visibility you have, control, and the ability to rapidly deploy, build, tear down, rebuild, etc., is just amazing. So those components alone, I could go on and on. Those are important reasons why it is good to start tinkering. You know how we are. We're engineers, right? We tinker. That's how we learn stuff. Years ago it was, try to ask your employer if the old router they're throwing out, if you could take it home, and you would take it home and you'd play with it and maybe even take it apart. Raspberry Pis, whatever the case may be, we're tinkerers. Don't leave out the cloud, is all I'm saying. Make sure that you're doing some tinkering in the cloud so you can speak to it, start to understand it, etc. So true, man. Cloudx says, I just started a company that will migrate everything to AWS. There you go. Jimmy67, I hope we won't soon migrating 2,000 plus servers to AWS. Azure would be a, you know what? Well, yeah, it would, but I have to say, Jimmy67, I worked on this last sprint. You may have heard the expression, cattle, not pets, right? That's a lot of cattle, 3,000. But it is so amazing how pliable the cloud is in terms of deploying infrastructure. Just think about how long it took to deploy those 3,000 virtual machines on premise, to put in the storage and the compute and the networking and the facilities, the racking, and to actually install and configure all those 3,000 plus servers. The time it takes to do that in the cloud is by orders of magnitude much less, depending on how you do it. You can also use the same processes in the cloud that you used on premise to deploy your virtual machines. You can do it very manually if you want. But no, you're going to want a template, and you're going to want to automate and blitz out, dozens of servers out at a time if you want. And even better is if you can move up stack, right? Instead of deploying, 10 Windows virtual machines to install 10 SQL databases, why not leverage a PaaS service, right? Where you can install 10 database instances that you can easily scale out, or scale up or scale down. It's just, the cloud's really, really cool. I have to say, I'm starting to show some of my bias. It's not virtual machines, all physical. Oh my gosh, yes, Jimmy67, that is a monumental task. Either way. Cloudx and all the new stuff like CI/CD, Jenkins containers means things scale very fast and good to go. Very true, Cloudx. We've been using, our team in particular, we use Ansible, we use Visual Studio, and what is now called Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is amazing. I've showed it a little bit here on stream. But for templating and automating deployments of, whether that be traditional IaaS things like virtual machines or PaaS like storage, key vaults, logic apps, the things you can do with logic apps and scripting, whether that be Node.js and function apps in Azure, is incredible. And I think it's Lambda on AWS. For example, just recently wanted to figure out a way to automatically detect when someone creates like a Red Hat virtual machine or a CentOS virtual machine of a certain version and with a certain tag. And we now have a function app in Azure that is notified anytime anyone creates those virtual machines with a certain tag, and it goes out, it connects to the virtual machine, it sets up a root account for like for our department or our team, and then it goes in, it kicks off an Ansible playbook and installs some packages that are a minimum requirement. It joins the virtual machine to a particular domain, and then we use another function app, I believe, that actually creates some groups in Active Directory like that allow root access. We automatically go out to a certain group of users and add those users to that group, and that group is automatically granted root access using some SE Linux process. I mean, and all this is automated. This is like 8 manual steps that is going to happen now, that happens now automatically, depending on a certain subscription. But yeah, it's just incredible what the automation capabilities that the cloud brings. So that's why I say, I know it's a long answer to a short question, but why Azure? Because that's what is important to me in my current job. But if I wasn't involved with the team working in Azure, I would be trying to build my labs right now in one of the cloud providers. I actually started to do it in Google Cloud Platform. I just didn't get very far. And but anyway, that's my answer there. And I encourage everyone to, if you don't have a project yet, spin up a project. There's all sorts of projects that you can try. One thing I did, my first actual, was this Azure or did I do this on Google? I may have done this on Google platform. I built a server. Let me see, I have the name of the project out here. We have Tech Gambino. I love that. Hey, we got a turbo user. I love that name. I don't trust Google to not fold up shop and kick everyone off the platform if it doesn't work out. Yeah, well, that is a concern. Some people do multi-cloud, right? Some people deploy their applications multi-cloud, and one might be a primary data center and the other is backup or failover. So, well, GCP is definitely working. Hey, at Network Engineer, yeah, GCP is pretty awesome, and if you look at the maturity, so in terms of feature offerings, GCP is still pretty new. Some of the things that it offers, and it's the same with Azure and AWS. Like AWS is the most mature platform in terms of broad set of features. Some would argue that's not the case, some developers, but AWS was really behind, and they have all but sort of caught up. There's still some things that I think they lack, capabilities they lacked at, but those again are very high-end sort of enterprise types of features. And then GCP, from what I could tell, was really behind, but they're really kicking in a high gear, and they've been adding features a lot. I subscribe to the Google. GCP has their own YouTube channel. I do the same with Azure and AWS, and they announce a lot of features there and new videos. You'll see, new videos that for channels you're subscribed to. I would suggest that too if you're trying to keep up with each of the providers and what features they're working on. Subscribe to them on YouTube or Twitter. And network engineering and automation lets you do whatever Lantamer is saying about multi-cloud. Yes, that's right. We were talking to, the company I'm working at now is part of, we're a child company of another very large parent company. And we've been collaborating with the parent company and their cloud implementation architectural folks. And, they're trying different things, right? But yeah, they started out doing a number of things, experimenting with a number of things in multi-cloud as well. And there are a number of products that will allow you to do multi-cloud. They'll give you a layer of abstraction. But yeah, great stuff. Cloud is here, it's here to stay, and it's only going to become more and more until the technology always does this, right? Is like we went from mainframe to PC and client server architectures, moving back to sort of a virtualization. There's always arcs, right, in the technology adoption. Right now we're sort of going back to, we're going to public cloud, which is not mainframe, but it's more off-premise versus on-premise, so to speak. Anyway, enough about that. That's what I'm going to be working on, folks, is getting back into labbing this weekend. Look for me to lab this weekend, and most likely any workbook in the QoS. We're going to try to hit some QoS hard. It's going to depend on how far I get on my federal and state taxes. Federal should be done by Saturday, and then part of Saturday, work on state. Not for Florida, fortunately. I have, there are reasons I have to file taxes in other. Florida, you don't have personal income tax in Florida, nor do you in Tennessee, where I moved from, which is nice. Anyway, that will depend. You did yours in January. Yeah, there are reasons why I couldn't start in January. Not to get in a lot of detail, but some paperwork that I needed, I just got, somewhat recently. So, yeah, I would have loved to have had this already done, though, to be honest. But I definitely don't want to wait till April 15th because I don't like to procrastinate on this kind of stuff. And also, Game of Thrones starts around that time. And I don't want to be distracted. The final season of Game of Thrones. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, folks. I always enjoy, we get a little bit of hubbub. Thursday evenings seem to be one of the most engaging, as well as Mondays, depending, and the weekends, of course. So on Discord, if you're not following me yet on Discord, check me out there. Join up with some other Lantamers, some other students, and I always post there when I'm about to stream, and let's hang out on some labs this weekend. Let's do some QoS labs, man. I'm feeling a lot better about QoS than I did at the start of the month, so that's really good. Thanks so much for hanging out, sending good bits out to everybody. You can follow me here, of course, on Twitch. If you have a Twitch Prime sub account, the free one that you get every month, and it's just sitting around, and you're an Amazon Prime, then you got a Twitch Prime account. Feel free to use that here. You can follow me here and on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Good to see everybody. We'll see you back here this weekend on Lantamer Stream. Have a good night.